Great. Okay, so a lot of people have been asking me about questions for what to do specifically with kids with selective mutism, but also with all of our more challenging clients. Now, I'm a speech language pathologist and I specialize in pediatrics, mostly birth to 6, although I do have some older kids on my caseload. So trying to engage kids in this kind of a format is a slightly different perspective than being able to go through that whole process. Hi, Esty. I just saw you
Hi,
joined
sweetie. How
in.
are you?
Great, thanks. So nice to
Good.
see you.
I'm very impressed with how you're doing this online with your SM kiddos. It's incredible.
Oh,
I'd
thank
love
you.
to get some of your tips, particularly how you've been able to do, for example, the Candyland game where you do actually turn taking. That's amazing.
Yes, yes. So I will definitely show everybody how to do that here.
Good. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. So, so as I was mentioning, as a speech language pathologist, the turn taking and the communication activities and so on are very important for me in everything that I'm doing. As for you all who may be more in a mental health field, perhaps you're occupational therapy or so on, I'm pretty sure you're all mental health except for Annie, but I'm not positive of that. So with that, I want to show you fairly quickly. Now, the first thing that you'll need to do is download Zoom. If you are all in here, you are able to just click on my link, but you can also download Zoom, and that's going to give you a lot more control when you schedule meetings with your clients. The other two pieces of very important information right now is that you absolutely need to make sure you're password protecting your meetings and that you're also using the waiting room feature. Because if you're using the Zoom as a platform, some people have been having folks hack into the system and unfortunately sharing some not so nice information and pictures and so on for our kiddos. So by having those two pieces, making sure that you enable the waiting room and making sure that you require a password, as long as they've got the link, the family won't have to input the password themselves, but that will protect you from making sure that no one is Zoom bombing, which is the term that's been going around. So just make sure that you have those few details taken care of. Then the next thing that you're going to want to know how to do is to share your screen. So in Zoom, at the bottom of the screen, when you are the host, you'll see a share screen button. So I'm going to click share screen, and I hit here and there. And now you should be able to see everything that was or is on my computer screen. So the two things that I used for Candyland, which are what most people are asking me about, and then you can modify these in whatever ways you want, are this we'lldecide.com. So you just go to this website and it's called we'lldecide.com, and then you can put in whatever type of things that you want in the spinner. So if I scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see Wheel Builder, and I built a physical kind of motor activity spinning wheel. Now, for some kids, in fact, for all kids, I'm very much about being child-led. So I had the students, the clients, tell me what they wanted to do for different activities. Or if I start with a few, I might say, is there something that I'm missing? Is there something you'd like to add in? And so for my kids with selective mutism, most of those kids have been with me in face-to-face interactions already. So I've already seen them for therapy personally, and most are at least minimally verbal with me so that they're saying single words or at least initial sounds or some small syllables or something like that with me, so that they're able to communicate some of this. For some of them, we kind of play charades. So if they're trying to figure out which things they want to add into the spinner, I might say, show me what you want me to add, and then they can just act it out and so on, so that then I can go ahead and I type it in. So let's see, how about if I add in, I don't know, I'm trying to think, sit-ups. So I can just go ahead and type that in. I click OK, apply wheel changes, and then you're going to see up at the top it will add sit-ups right in here, okay? Now the other thing that I'm going to do, and Annie, since you and I know each other fairly well, I hope you won't mind that I select you, but I would like to give you remote control over my screen. So by doing, moving my mouse up to the top of the screen, you'll see the little control come down, and then what I'm gonna do is click remote control, and then I just scroll down to Annie's name. And now Annie, you can move your mouse around and it should move it on mine. So I'm not moving the mouse. Can you grab it? There you go. Awesome. Now, if you go and put the mouse on the spinner and click your mouse, it's gonna spin. And you got bunny hops. I'm not gonna have you actually do bunny hops, but then I would have the child do bunny hops, and then I actually do the bunny hops too, because in my sessions, that's how we play, that's how we interact, and that's how we share together and so on. So to some extent, the child's got a little bit more control and they can initiate a little bit by doing this gestural activity, but then we're also sharing in that moment and connecting with each other that way. So that's how I use the different spinners. Now, if I scroll down, I still have Annie with her control. If I scroll down here, and let's say I want to do some questions. Now, I came up over the last week or so, I've come up with a few other types of spinners. Again, you guys can think of whatever you want, but I just did question words, WH question words. So Annie, go ahead and click on the spinner so that it'll spin. Thank you. And when is her question. So she would have to ask me a when question, or I might say, I'm going to ask you a when question, and then we can take turns back and forth. So again, if it's a child thinking more from a speech and language perspective, if it's a child that's working on WH questions, maybe we're doing prepositions. So for interaction, I might have the parent come prepared with, you know, a stuffed animal, and then that child spins the spinner and we're doing prepositions for location, and they have to go put their bunny under something. So they run away and put it underneath, and mom's there or caregivers there to try to help determine, are we getting that taken care of? You know, did the child accurately put it under? Did she put it on? Did she put it next to whatever we're doing? For some kids, they can do that right here in front of the camera. Other kids really need to get up and move, and that's how I'm keeping them engaged. And honestly, this spinner has been one of the best kind of inventions, the fact that they have the power. Now, let's say you have a kid who is very savvy on the computer and now they have control over your computer. Because Annie could now, potentially, don't do it, Annie, but you could now go up and close out of Spinner, for example. Or you could click off of my Zoom, or you could open my QuickBooks or whatever. So you have a few options with the Zoom settings to minimize what the kids are actually seeing. And then there's a shortcut that you can enable, and this is going to be really important. It is Control-Shift-G, which means give back. Think of it that way. That means I can select Control-Shift-G, and it will take the remote control away from Annie so she can no longer play on my computer. So sadly, we have kids that are going to push those boundaries and test things and see what they can do. And usually we can just say, you know, can you give me back power? And they'll be okay. Other times they're not okay doing that. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to take my power back and do my Control-Shift-G. Abort control. So now Annie doesn't have her control anymore. Now the other piece, you all saw the Candyland activity. So what I have done that has worked well is I created a folder for each client. So for you guys today, I just called it virtual therapy resources, but this way I'm not having to search everywhere on my computer for all of my resources or whatever I need to pull for kids. Again, I'm a fairly child-led type of therapist. I'm a DIR floor time clinician, which means that I very much follow the child's lead. So sometimes what I might have in my mind for ideas may not be at all what the child has in mind for theirs. So keep that in mind, that there is some flexibility, and I can, you know, if a child says, oh, I want to read the unicorn book that we read last week or whatever, then I can pull that out. So for Candyland, I basically just went to Google Images, and I can send these to you guys, or I can put them into the listserv if you want. But I went to Google Images and I found an image of a Candyland board that worked well for me. And then what I can do let me get up here, there we go. In Zoom, there's an annotate button. So hopefully you all can see that annotate button. And then for me, I do it a little differently than some other people. Some people open it as a PDF, and then within your PDF writer, you can have little stamps and symbols and so on, or tokens or circles or whatever. I'm doing it a little differently. I just do it right here as a JPEG, as an image file. And so the child can be a star. So you see the little star down here, and then I can be a heart. That was the example that you guys saw for the video. So then what will happen is I will tell, whoops, I forgot to clear off my heart. Let me erase, undo. Then what I'm gonna do, I have to click on mouse because otherwise I'm still on the stamp button here. I click on mouse to get control of my mouse, and I'm going to go back to my spinner. Sorry, I didn't open my Candyland spinner. Again, I had to create all of these spinners ahead of time for what I wanted, and it's fairly self-explanatory. Annie, I forgot, I'm gonna give you control again. All right, you should be able to see the accept the control piece. And then go ahead and click on the spinner. Wow, I'm gonna play with you more often. She got the peppermint right off the bat. So then I just go back down and pull up the Candyland. I'm just switching screens is ultimately what I'm doing. So I'm gonna click the select tool, and then I'm gonna come down to the little star, and then we're gonna zoom, 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 zoom. And I do the little zoom and, you know, keep the kids' attention by making sounds and whatever. And then depending on the child, I might say, I think in the video that you saw, I asked, you know, do you like peppermint candies or do you like the color orange? We were working on yes and no and some of those kinds of, again, think about what your goals are for how you're going to interact with the kids for each of these. And then I would go and I would take my turn and we would just shift back and forth. So literally I would just go back over to the spinner page. Now it's my turn, I click it and I get whatever I happen to get, blue. And then I can head back over here. I click select. I go down to my little shape and I'm only right here, womp womp, okay? So that's how I play Candyland. Now I know I muted everybody, but if you have a question about the Candyland and the wheel spinner, why don't we go ahead and shift gears for questions so that Esty can get her questions about Candyland if there are any.
I also want to ask a different question because you mentioned that you are with kids who for the most part are in some fashion verbal. All right, I have a child, we're at the pre-contemplative portion of her abilities. She is finally getting to the point where she is giving me a lot of nonverbal gesturing, and she is for the first time actually I saw her go into the corner and whisper to her brother, which was excellent. All right, but we're not at the point now where she's yet able to, to talk. So I do have parent, and she, will gesture to me or to the parent, and then we sort of figure it out that way. Oh, you're doing the ABC, but she's going to letters. Okay, thank you. There you go.
Yeah. So for my kids specifically with SM, and again, because, our kids with SM cognitively are able to manage all of these components fairly well. Caregivers are next door and so on. I still use this as a warm up for some of the kids. And honestly, I wasn't sure if their verbal confidence would even transfer to the computer, right? They're now at home, so they've changed settings. Maybe they have or haven't really warmed up, to me being there and in this setting. Some kids have been great about showing me, toys or being a little bit more comfortable just because they're in their home environment. And other kids definitely had that wall up. So I downloaded, again, I went to Google Images and I found an alphabet that I thought was cute and fun and whatever. And I go through the same process that I typically would do with voiceless sounds, for example, initially, and then shift into voice sounds and so on. So I can, in that annotate up here, I can find out what their favorite color is. Now, I would give control to the child. I won't do it right now, but I would give control to the child, and then they can actually select the color that they want. So
Right.
let's say it's a little gal, so pink, might be a fave. Oops, I didn't click on it. Why are we not doing it? It's going to prove me wrong. Annotate. Click. Oh, it's because I'm not drawing. Sorry. You also have to go to the draw button. There we go. Okay. So then I would just go through the same way if I were side by side with the child, or we were incorporating different things, and I might talk about the H and say, that is a deep breath in and a big exhale out. Let's try, as if we were blowing up a balloon, or sighing, or however you want to kind of talk about it. And then if the kiddo can do that with their mom, even if it's a slight whisper right there, then I'm going to draw the first time, I'm going to draw the X through, that H, and, do my little, wow, way to go. That was a big breath in and a big breath out. That's just like the H sound. That's so awesome. And because now they have control too, we can share control. I'll have the child select which sound they want. And at this point, mom has to let us know which one they're going to choose, because they can't just point or whatever. I wouldn't see what they were pointing to. But let's say then the child says, F. So I might go and kind of, start one line this way and then tell the child, okay, and F is like biting down on your lip, and we're going to cool down your lip. Let's make that really cool sound, on that bottom lip. And if the child's successful, then I would say, okay, now you draw the other line. So then they come along and, draw this little X through the F. So that would be my next step for your kiddo. And as you know, trying to build in some of that sensory motor might make a difference. But however you can play with the sounds, this is how I've been doing it still with my kids they were just barely at kind of a syllable, single word stage, or even segmenting for yes or no. They were still kind of there, using the alphabet board.
Yeah.
Jolene, can I ask you a really technical question about Wheel Decide?
Yes.
And if you don't know, it's fine. I'll play with it later. But do you know if you can put images instead of words into the spaces?
Yeah, I don't think that you can. So for my kids with visual supports, the way that I've been doing that is I will put the word here, and then I create a whole other visual support where I use augmentative communication for a lot of kids. So I just use the symbols from whatever symbol set they're using on their device. So really technically, I downloaded the PASS software for their augmentative systems, and then I can print out from there whatever their symbols are. So it's not the best. It helps a little bit with some literacy, connections, but no, I have not found one that can do visuals, as far as pictures. So if you have free time and have that technical expertise, go for it. Make one.
I wish. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, for some kids too, I'll do, I have the number spinner that I created, which is just a bunch of numbers. So again, instead of colors on Candyland, you could do numbers or something else. I might say number 1, and then I'll have on another screen, and I don't happen to have it in the folder. I didn't think we'd get here, but so number 1 is jumping jacks or something like that. And it would be the picture of jumping jacks. So you're kind of going back and forth a little bit, but most of the kids, especially my SM kids, are getting that. Now, I could talk another 2 hours for my kids on the autism spectrum that are my nonverbal or pre-verbal kids for those, situations. But
Well, my kids are mostly just pre-readers, they're
so yeah. So I basically, when those words come up, I just say, oh, it says who, WHO, and just go with that. So I'm not expecting them to read it.
Right, that makes sense.
4-year-olds, I'm not expecting to read. Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to show you guys is in the share screen. One of the other options is to share from my iPhone or my iPad. So I just plug that into the USB into my what's the word that I want? The USB port, I guess, on my thing. And now you guys are seeing my camera. I'm actually showing you, so I can turn around. So you're seeing my kitchen and everything here in my house. But this way, I don't have to have the kid actually have their own game board. I can show them the game board from here. So for example, if you can't adapt Chutes and Ladders, then you can go ahead and share using your camera phone and just do it from here. So that's another way. I have not been able to record myself with a session doing this. I've done them all. I don't want to make you all dizzy. But if you have an app, for example, on your iPad that you wanted to share with the kids, you could go ahead and do that as well. So that's another little trick that I have.